those.
I did arrange for some happy cat pictures that I picked up off the internet in case this all goes horribly, horribly wrong. I went optimistic and I wanted to keep the good feelings, but in case you all turn on me, I got a cat picture for that too. What I do have is a fairly new company that I started that's what I call in the evil toddler stage where my ambitions exceed my credit limit. I have a marriage that I refer to myself as Chris's first wife, and I'm the parent of 4 children who are in their own various stages of delightful awkwardness that only a mother could love. I kid you not, this is a post from my daughter's Facebook page. She's 16, she's had a film in the Vancouver International Film Festival, and she has posts like this. We figure she's either a genius and she's going to get a scholarship, or Chris and I are just going to have to foot the bill for cleats and a helmet and have her living in our backyard because we don't know what to do with her. This is a little bit of what we have to live with. And if anyone can answer that question, join her on Facebook. I was born in Calgary in 1973. I'm the youngest of 4 children. This could be a coincidence, but Queen Victoria chose to visit Calgary in 1973, and the celebrations continued well into the next year. That would be me. Parenting was different then. We all have these pictures, you know you do. My father was a traveling salesman, so whenever work was slow or he'd listened to too many Johnny Paycheck albums, we would leave that job and move on to the next. By the time I was 8, we had lived in Calgary, we lived in Cochrane, we lived in Sherwood Park, North Cooking Lake. And I was born the same day as my cousin Andy, which means we spent every single birthday together underneath some rolling hill in Alberta somewhere. So after 16 years with my father, my mother, who had also listened to those same Johnny Paycheck 8 tracks copiously and over again, decided to do just that and took this job and shoved it. She left my father in the mid-'80s and took her younger children with her, and I was one of those younger children. And this became our family vehicle. For anyone who's actually ever flown in a Grumman Goose, you're aware that when you land, you go underwater, because the body is actually a pontoon for a Grumman Goose. And you know that when you do land, the water will come up over the window. I didn't know that. This was my very first experience flying to our new home in Calvert Island. And since then, I have this great relationship with various aircraft in that I have a relationship with them since that first experience that if they get me to where I need to go safely and without surprises, I will not void my bowels in their interior. So which is really good because I've flown an awful lot, and I think the passengers beside me appreciate this understanding that I have. So for the next 10 years, this was home. This was the front of our window. We lived at the BCTEL generating site, which meant that it was the only relay station for all of the coastal radio communications. Our sole reason for being there was to keep those diesel generators running. So for those of you who know what it's like running on a generator and you wake up on a stormy night and there's no sound, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So if those went down, we were frantically running to get them back up and racing up to the mountain. So I had 2 dogs. I had copious amounts of rabbits, because what kid can only have like 2 rabbits? I mean, you have to have a lot more than that. I befriended the local pigeons. This one in particular used to bathe in my dishpan every single night when I had to do my chores. I had lots of squirrels. I was only the only child for a long time up there. I was starting to go a little squirrely myself. But it was when I literally started running with the wolves that my mother sort of went, okay, we've got to fly you out and send you to high school, because she was a little bit afraid I was starting to go feral on her. So I spent a couple of months in a one-room school at Cessford, Alberta, and then I moved to Courtenay to finish high school. I went home every summer to Hackeye Lodge, which that's an aerial view of what it looks like today. I was a chambermaid and a waitress there for over 10 years, and it was like going home every summer for me, because that was where I was from. And that was my view out the side window, and that was my ride to work for a little over 10 years, every single morning. It never got better than that, but it did occasionally get worse than that. And water does feel like concrete in certain stormy weathers if you've ever than the wave jump. This doesn't exist anymore, but I know there was some members of the club who actually participated in building that, which I thought was quite interesting, small world. And this is the old way up inside the mountain to the tower before they blasted a road. So if you had to haul equipment, you had trolleys and you had those stairs. And sometimes that equipment was 100+ pounds. So I really marvel at the engineering. After graduation, I went to the University of Victoria, where I studied art education, and then I moved to Germany, where I worked for a couple of years teaching English. I married my first husband, Robert, there, and we had Tatiana. I did spend some time, I traveled through China, I traveled through Scotland and the United States. I worked as a graphic designer and an architectural illustrator. And then after a few years, Robert and I's marriage came to an end and we divorced. And several years later, a very, very good friend of mine decided to ask me out after apparently mulling over the thought for 17 years. So, I'm not kidding, apparently he's been trying to ask me out for 17 years. So I moved in a week later. I didn't see much point in making him wait anymore. So, we had boys. And I eventually became a funeral director, and it was a fellow by the name of Dan Monroe who was my mentor, who literally, I walked in off the street and this fellow decided, hey, you know what, we're going to take a chance, and that's why I am where I am today. And the rest is very much a work in progress. So I'd be really remiss if I didn't make you sit through a slideshow and not show you pictures of my kids, because now you're all a very captive audience. It took me a few hours, but I found one where they're not actually killing each other. This is James and Ben and David. And the more kids you have, the harder it is to actually get them into the same photograph. So I think this is my daughter in the back seat of a van, which is where she's probably going to live, so it's kind of her natural habitat. But if you know what Homestuck is, you're doing way, way better than me. You probably know, Claudia, what Homestuck is, but apparently it's this generation's version of Catcher in the Rye. It's a big deal, so that's what that's all about. She does look a little more presentable. She's a third-year Venture Scout, and she has traveled to Scotland and various camps, and she's also taken a lot of leadership training, so she's going to make an excellent Rotarian. I have to say, all my kids, they're probably my greatest legacy at this point. And I have kids who I spend a lot of hours away from home. Sometimes I'm working 20 days, sometimes I don't come home at all because of work. And so these kids sometimes get grumpy mom, but they still leave me with little Easter greetings like this. And I have to say that I guess I'm the mom only my kids could love as a backup. So thank you very much.
Questions? Anybody has any questions? I got a little bit of time today. Look at the job you did.
Got a question. I just wanted to pass on. This lovely lady also owns a very, very large farm.
134. It owns me, actually. That's a little bit of a correction. The farm owns me.
So that keeps her going besides her job. And her husband.
And then,
Just like to say, I worked up in Poelevorde Island for 2 summers in '68 for BC Tel, contracted out, and yeah, we went up those hills a lot. And then this summer I spent a couple weeks around that, well, 5-6 weeks around that whole area there. Yeah, you couldn't have a better place to grow up.
It's stunning. The white sand beaches there, I've never seen beaches that big, that white, and you're looking out to Japan. It's just
About a
incredible.
53 hell just off that beach.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic, and it's literally in our backyard, so it's nice. Good.
Sandy, thank you very much. Really is, our best programs come from our own members, there's no doubt about that. So not to build it up too much, Keith.